Alrighty, welcome back to Late Night Hotpot, episode number 5. I'm your host Jeremy, and I'm here with my co-host Zoe, and let's go. Let's get into it. So this week we're talking
Hello.
about. So this week we're talking about basically my dad was asking me about going to the physio, and I don't know about you guys, but with my dad, like he doesn't really believe in the concept of going to a physio, and so basically earlier this week I had to go to the physio for my ankle, and he was um, like, I'll bring over some oil for you. And so basically he brought over this, bro.
What is that? Can you
真骨
read
水.
the label?
真骨水.
正骨水.
Yeah. So
Straight
this is,
bone water.
yes. So like accurate bone water. Like I don't really know what this is. Like I haven't tried it yet, but we have 真骨水 and we also have 丸皮. Can you read that, bro?
Yes. Wait, have you tried them out? Like
No,
what are they meant
bro.
to
No,
do?
bro. I'm a little
Wait,
bit
wind it back,
stuck.
wind it back. Why did you need to go to the physio? What happened? Talk to us.
Okay,
Why?
so like obviously like my foot is still injured from when I sprained it doing Muay Thai a couple of years ago. And so basically like I still need to go back because I'm doing like my recovery runs and still trying to get back into running, which has been a little bit of a hassle because like I injured on that 18K a couple like maybe like 2 or 3 months back. But yeah, so I'm obviously going back to the physio within like every 3 to 4 weeks. And I'm just doing like I have like assigned physio exercises that I need to do. And yeah, but basically like I had to go to the physio on Wednesday. My dad messages me like almost every day just because he's just checking up on me and seeing what I'm up to. And then this week I was like, he's like, oh, what are you up to today? And I was like, oh, like I need to edit the podcast for the previous episode and also need to go to the physio. And he was like, oh, like, why do you need to go to the physio? And I was just kind of like, bro, like, what do you mean? Like, I don't know. I was kind of a little bit annoyed because I was like, you know, I guess from like his perspective, it's like, you know, he's told me in the past, like, oh, like I've literally never even been to the physio in my life. And I'm kind of like, oh, like, okay, like you can say that, but you've also never like moisturized before. You've also like, you
Not
know,
you calling him out on his skincare routine like
bro,
that.
like, bro, there's like a lot of things that this man hasn't done. And I'm just
Hey,
like, bro,
Uncle Skin be pretty clear.
you
Uncle
know what
Skin
I
be pretty
mean,
clear.
bro? Like
I do, I
the
do.
generation above us, there is so many things that they don't believe in. They don't believe in therapy. They don't believe in physio. They don't believe in moisturizer. Like you know, Eddie's got some
It's like
stories
if
as
you're
well
sick,
from
go
his
drink
dad.
water or like
Yes,
just stop using your
exactly.
phone.
Yes,
I
I
think a
know.
classic one
Eddie
is
was
like don't use your phone so much.
Yeah, bro. Eddie was telling me when COVID first hit the US, his dad was like, "Oh, like, Jen Hulsi, like breathe in the vinegar. You gotta breathe in the vinegar. It's gonna get out
I
the
remember
COVID,
that
bro."
story. Yeah,
And
yeah,
I
because
was
it was like
like,
the vinegar was like antibacterial or something, and they're always
"Yes,
like giving
bro.
stuff.
I know." And I'm just like, bro, I just think about all these things that like Chinese people believe, and I'm just like, you know, where do they get these superstitions from? And it's like, obviously, we need to kind of dig back into history and like, you know, there's a lot of myths behind it. But I'm just like, bro, like come on, man. Like physiotherapists have been around for a while. Like this is a normal academic discipline, and it's like you know if you're injured, you go to the physio. But I don't know. I guess my dad's kind of like, no, you got to use
I feel
one
like
P
there's two
or
parts of
jungle
that.
straight. Yeah.
I feel
Okay,
like
you
there's
go.
like two parts to that, right? Like when at the
Mhm.
start you're like, okay, like the inhaling vinegar thing. I feel like that
Mm,
is just misinformation that was like spread on social media, which was very prevalent
mm,
during that
okay.
time, especially when COVID was like on full blast back in like 2020 or whatever.
Yeah.
But also just because like that generation, they just kind of they don't recognize that who like literally anyone has the authority to post anything online. I can literally put up an article somewhere and it says like I don't know like
Mm.
drinking grass juice is gonna make your skin look great. You know what I mean?
Okay. All
But
right.
that has like
Sure.
absolutely no scientific background. But like I
Right.
guess because in our parents' eyes, like anything that was
Mm,
published was like it had to
mm,
go through editors and like people who
mm,
reviewed their work before it reached the reader. So they just assume
mm.
that like a health article is somewhat like backed by some sort of authority, I guess. But that's like one
Right.
aspect of it. But there's
Okay.
also like the general gap aspect. So like the
Mm,
like different perspectives, right? Like
mm,
I don't think my parents ever went to physio either.
Mm.
And like I remember my parents telling me how like didn't go to the dentist till like they were like in their 40s maybe, or like 30s or 40s. And they're like, yeah,
Mm.
it's not a thing. Like nobody like growing up had to go like for biannual checkups for their teeth or like anything. Like everyone just
Mm.
sort of like had homemade remedies and like
Right.
and everyone was fine. There's a lot of things you could argue. Like
Mm.
life was
Okay.
also like simpler back then, and you could argue that people
Mm.
just weren't as exposed to things that made people sick, like processed foods or whatever. But that's a whole other
Mm.
thing we can unpack.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. But I can totally see it though. It's like if they've grown up never
Mm.
having been like needing to
Mm.
go themselves, they'll be like, oh, like
Right.
what is this $120 appointment that I now have to pay for? And
Okay.
like
That's
they're just here to like pull my leg
fair.
and like what the heck, I can pull my own leg or whatever,
Right.
you know?
Okay. But do you think it's up to me to be like, oh, like try to think from his perspective and be like, he doesn't believe in physiotherapy, or is it up to him to be like, oh, like this is actually an academic discipline, and most normal people when they injure themselves or have some kind of running injury or sports injury, they go to the physio to get it checked out. I don't know. What do you think?
It's like hard with family, I feel. It's because like because they're so close to you, they can kind of like project their opinion on you a little bit more,
Right.
or like they expect you to share the same views
Mm.
as them a little bit more than like someone like a friend or like an outsider, you know, because like they are your blood. Um,
Mm.
it's hard. I feel
Mm.
like speaking for myself, it's like my parents also kind of like I think it's just like out of habit, right? Like you're their kid. They just want to tell you
Mm.
what they think is right. They think they're like they obviously want what's best for you, and they just
Mm.
are like giving the best advice that they can given what they know.
Right.
But I guess in your case, to answer your question, is like it's hard. I suppose having like both sides need to be like open because like the root cause of it is like differing opinion, right? You both have
Mm.
different approaches to this like issue.
Mm. Mm.
And it's not like one is more right or more wrong. It's just like different. It's like
Right.
similar. Like it's not just parents, like Asian parents who feel like they want a self remedy. Like I'm sure that
Mm.
like other people are like, oh, like I don't need this. It's like, but different people
Mm.
have different priorities. Also, it's just difference in opinion, I guess.
Right. Okay. But I feel like it's a little bit different with your case though, because you know both your parents were born in Malaysia, and then you were born and bred in Malaysia, and maybe that kind of difference in values is less, or that kind of intergenerational gap. But for me and my dad, with him being born in Malaysia and then me being born in Australia, like I don't know, it's always been tough. And I don't know, do you think it's up to him, because you mentioned like the whole thing of being family, it's hard with us being family, and him kind of wanting me to um, kind of have the same values as him, but because I grew up in a completely different environment, then I naturally just don't have those same values, and I definitely don't have the same values in terms of my outlook towards physiotherapy or going to the doctor, or moisturiser. But yeah, I don't know. What do you reckon?
I think so. I guess because growing up, it was like I'm used to like not needing to go to the doctor unless like I really, really have to either. So
Mm.
that could make sense. Like that's how I like that was the approach to health when I was younger. But I guess
Right.
it's also different now that I'm older and
Mm.
essentially I have to be an adult and I have to take charge of
Mm.
my own health and
Yep. Yep.
all of that kind of stuff. So I think now I do try to make a point to, for example, see the dentist twice a year, go to maybe
Mm.
do like get my blood checked like once a year.
Right.
And a bunch of like other screening tests that like even though there's nothing
Yep.
wrong, it's kind of like worth doing just to like at least get the numbers on paper and have like records about.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think like our generation or like Gen Z as a whole has a
Yeah.
way more has a bigger emphasis on like wellness and health, or
Mm.
at least that's what I perceive it to be. I could be totally
Right.
wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, but I do think the environmental, like what you're used to, the method you're used to dealing with things is kind of like it is linked some way though. Like I am used to
Mm.
not going to the doctor unless I really have to, but I know people who are like, oh, the first sign of like, oh, I have a
Mm.
headache, take painkillers. Like I will
Right.
try to wait it out. Like for me, like I have a headache, the first thing I'll do, okay, I'll drink more water. I'll try to take
Mm.
a nap. I'll
Yeah.
try to get off my phone because staring at the screen really does give me a migraine sometimes, and I just need to like
Right.
log off and go touch grass somewhere. But that's
Right.
because I kind of have figured that out for myself. But if you have found out that physio is beneficial for
Mm.
you, and it does make
Mm.
sense, like if you have an ankle injury, I know absolutely
Mm.
zero
Right.
knowledge about how to fix an injured
Right.
ankle. So
Okay.
I would go forth and seek help from a professional if there was
Mm.
one.
Right. But do you feel like that kind of mentality of like, oh, I would only go to the doctor once I'm, on the verge of dying, or like I absolutely have to, like that comes from your parents?
Kind of, or I guess it's like I also think it's a young people thing. Like, I feel like
Mm.
the younger generation or people who are haven't really had to deal with health problems yet have a
Mm-hmm.
sense of this mentality that we're bit like invincible. Like, for example, like I know for
Mm.
me at least, like I get told off sometimes. It's like, oh, like I don't sleep very much. Like I just don't take care of my diet, or like I go out drinking for like a like long periods of time. I just don't take care of my health. I feel like
Mm.
now I start noticing like the difference, like how that has an impact on my body. But when I was like younger, like when I was like 18 and stuff, like I did not care. And it's
Right.
because like you're young and you recover from those things like way faster. So I just think, like, oh, like it's also because your body at that point was able to
Mm.
sort of fix itself or like is
Right.
able to deal with that amount of stress that you put it through. But I feel
Right.
like now that we're getting a little bit older, like we notice things.
Mm.
I definitely cannot function the same way I did when I was like 18 years old. Like my body would
Mm.
just like shut down. So I think
Right.
like yeah, maybe you're starting to notice that oh like this like when I was in high school, if I had an ankle injury, it kind of just like went away by itself within a week. And
Mm.
if
Okay.
like I feel like for me, if like I also had a bit of a weird I can't remember, it was like a tendon on like it was my foot, like the tendon around my ankle was kind of like sore when I swapped running shoes and I was a bit like iffy
Mm-hmm.
about that too. I was like
Yeah.
Googling and like making all these um like medical diagnoses online, but I was kind of
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I'm gonna wait for a week, and if it still hurts, then I will go see a physio. But I think given
Mm.
your circumstance, like your injury has been from like an old injury from like another
Mm.
sport,
Yeah.
so like the severity is different. So I think that matters, and you need to take that into
Mm.
account too. For example, if like my ankle has been hurting for like 3 months straight, I definitely
Mm.
think it's time to go see a doctor.
Yeah. Well, bro, it's been hurting for over 3 years, bro. So I don't know,
Yeah, so it's like
man.
a
I guess,
chronic injury, so that makes sense.
yeah.
All right,
No,
you go.
100%. I don't know. I just feel like I kind of just get annoyed when my parents are like, oh, it'll just fix itself eventually. I'm like, there was a legit. I had like a grade two ATFL sprain, and then I went and did physiotherapy for like 6 weeks, and I was still trying to like it got a lot better from when I initially injured it. It was literally like purple when I sprained it, but I don't know. I just feel like sometimes parents kind of speak from an opinion of like I don't know. I guess it just kind of comes from their own background and their own upbringing. With the parents, our parents' generation, not really coming from good socioeconomic circumstances, and so if they were sick or they were injured or something, that they kind of just had to use their home remedies. Um, but I don't know. It's something where I kind of feel like even though that's the way that they were brought up, like I feel like it should be the onus on them to kind of be like, okay, my kids grow up in a different environment, and we do have access to physiotherapy, we do have access to doctors, we do have access to dentists, and so like I think it's something where healthcare should be prioritized rather than kind of allowing things to get as bad as they possibly can before you kind of jump in with some kind of solution. I don't know. What do you think?
I hear you. So you think that it's up to them to sort of decipher that yourself? I feel like it's a hard one. It's not, I don't think they're kind of making the best decision to them given the information that they have. Maybe they just haven't been educated about like the importance of this
Mm,
or like the
mm,
recovery of this specific injury because
right.
if your parent has never done the same sport as you have or they
Mm,
just never like research into it, they would have like no idea
mm,
possibilities that would like come from that and like
right.
sort of like the downstream consequences of like not prioritizing recovery in that way early on.
Mm, yeah, okay. Like, I do hear you. Um, but I guess it's hard because obviously my parents are in their shoes and I'm in my shoes, and it's kind of really conflicting in terms of like, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like I'm very biased and it's very opinionated, but I just feel like they're always like, um, like it's fine, like don't worry about it, like just my dad was like, oh, just like stop running for a little bit, and then like it'll get better, and I'm just like, you know, obviously I like it's injured and it's still injured, and I need to go, like I have a 10 run plan that my physio has given me, and I need to actually go and complete those runs and also do the physio exercises in between in order for it to recover. Like I don't think that if I just rest it, it's just gonna like automatically recover. But I think because of the way that he grew up and the circumstances he was under, it's like obviously he would have never had access to a physio. He would have never had access to all these things where it's so easy for me to access. And he kind of looks at it like it's a waste of money. Like why would you even bother? But I don't know. It's just differing opinions, I guess, in terms of intergenerational. Yeah.
I feel like understanding comes in a two-way street. Like, so it's like with sort of any sort of dynamic that involves two people. Like,
Mm.
there's always going to be some facet where like those two people will have like differing opinions, whether that's like your sibling,
Mm.
your friend, your partner. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, how are you both able to have like an open conversation about like I'm just getting hella deep, but like it's like an open conversation about like
Mm.
how you view the situation, and it's like
Yeah.
you guys can have different opinions. You guys just have to respect that the opinions are different, and then just accept it. If that makes sense. Like I feel like
Mm.
it comes from a wrong place if you're trying to like change the way
Mm.
that he naturally is, because like
Right.
we essentially don't have control over how other people act. We
Mm.
only have
Think.
control
Yeah.
over how we respond.
Yeah.
So I get that you're frustrated, but
Mm.
think yeah, it's like I get it though. I definitely get riled up
Mm.
when like I feel
Mm.
misunderstood or I just don't feel seen
Mm.
by
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
But it's just the mature way
Mm.
is to have an open conversation about it, but it's really hard, especially with
Mm.
like parent kid dynamic sometimes because like
Mm.
I know my like within my family dynamic, it's like, oh, like I feel like my parents still feel like the parent and like because I'm the youngest
Mm.
in the family, it's like they don't really
Yeah.
notice that I'm
Yeah.
necessarily like grown up now and I
Yeah.
kind of try to make my own decisions and like they kind of like
Mm.
don't respect me making
Yeah.
my own decisions sometimes. So I totally get it.
Yeah.
I kind of just like acknowledge it and like I don't force like I just don't try to
Mm.
project my opinion on her because I feel like she's never gonna change her opinion.
Right.
But I'm just gonna do it anyway. So
Mm.
yeah.
That's fair. I can really, yeah, I feel like it's the same thing with my dad, bro. Like, you know, we always just clashing like this about everything. And it's like, that's a small thing, in terms of like, he doesn't believe in physiotherapy, but these kind of things just add up. And it's like, you know, I think we're both kind of cut from the same cloth. Like, we're both extremely stubborn. And it's like, I'm like, dude, there's literally people that go to school, go to university, study physiotherapy for 5 years or whatever, and this is what their profession is. And it's like, he's just like, why do you need to go? Like, I don't understand. Like, just rub some cream on it. And I'm just kind of, it's, I don't know. Well, let's bring it back because I feel like we're kind of taking off on a tangent, but it's like, I guess something where I'm like, you know, there's always just going to be that clash, and it's a matter of like how I kind of reconcile, and something I'm still working through. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's normal. It's like with any sort of family dynamic, like
Mm,
people I think one thing I realized as I got older is that people do kind of evolve and change and like we
mm,
tend to have a certain expectation of how another person's going to behave and then we
mm,
get frustrated when the other person acts outside of those expectations.
Mm,
Um, but it's a human thing to do, and
mm,
people change, and it's just how you respond to it. Like it's like ooh, like the initial reaction, like oh, like you don't understand me, but like okay, how can we
mm.
try to understand each other going forward,
Right,
kind of thing.
right. But don't you think it's kind of like a two-way street in terms of that communication? If like I don't know if the other person isn't, I guess communication isn't really their strong set. It's kind of
Communication's
hard for
hard.
us. Yeah.
Communication, I feel like communication is like the breakdown of like most relationships, whether that's like friendships, family, or like romantic
Mm,
relationships.
mm. Yeah,
And it's
for sure.
also because like usually it's like the people you're closest to because you're just so comfortable, you kind of just like
Mm,
speak whatever, and you're just like, oh, but you just don't get
mm.
me, you know?
Right, right. I don't know, bro. My mom's always like, your dad's getting old, and she always quotes like, "Old habits die hard," and it's like, he's so old that like, it's really hard for him to change. And from one perspective, I can understand it, and I can empathize that. I guess the older you are, the more set in your ways that you're kind of like stuck in the mud, and it's really difficult to kind of break, put a circuit breaker in. But I don't know, sometimes it's like you just wish that someone could change, and it's like me growing up with him already being so old, and when I was born he was already old, and so it's like there's a huge generational gap, and it's just kind of like, is there ever gonna be a time when he's gonna be able to change his opinions, or is it just gonna stay like this for the rest of my life, and I'm just gonna have to have you know conflict with him for the rest of my life, kind of thing. you know I don't know, I guess it's tough. So yeah.
I think you could reframe the way you put it was a little bit like sad, but I do
Okay.
hear it though. It is very, very,
Mm,
a very real thing, and I think it's
mm-hmm,
like first things first, like you're not alone. I feel like a lot of people definitely go through that, especially like as
mm,
they get older, as they kind of like figure
mm,
themselves out.
yep.
Um, like they realize like our parents are doing life for the first time too. This is the first time he's
Yep.
dealing with like a son
Yep.
that's like
Yep. Yep.
going through his mid 20s. Like he's trying to
Yep.
like he's kind
Yep.
of figuring this out for
Mm,
the first time too. So I think like what we can
yeah.
do is kind of
Mm,
like give him the grace for that. Like
mm,
it's easier said than done. I feel
mm,
like I'm able to be way more appreciative of these things, like when I have a bit of space, like when I'm not,
mm,
we're not like in each other, like under each
yep.
other's skin all of the time. Like I
Yep.
feel like I've grown like way, way, way more appreciative since like moving
Yep.
out and just like
Yep.
having selected quality time with my
Mm,
family, and
mm,
we're not like
mm,
trying to like make each other fit into each other's molds all the time, because you will
right.
like if you're naturally different people, you're naturally butt heads a lot.
Yep. Yep.
But like if you don't like say if you live with them, which is the case
Mm,
for a lot of people, then it's like
yep.
you're gonna butt heads like almost every day. You're like, oh my God,
Yep.
like this is so draining. But if you
Yep.
see them like
Mm,
less often, or you have some space, you're just like, oh, every time you see them, you're a bit more mindful. You're like, oh,
mm,
this naggy thing doesn't really matter anymore. Like what matters is me trying to spend time with you. Like it's more intentional.
right.
Um, Another part I wanted to say was also just like it is really hard because
Mm,
it's unlikely that our parents are going to change, and I feel like it's given to
mm,
anyone, like you can't expect anyone to change based off like how you want them to act, because that's almost
mm,
like changing them as a person. Like they have
right.
to want to change for
Mm,
themselves.
right.
And that speaks for like anyone, like not just parents, I feel.
Mm,
um but yeah, like with family it's hard because it's like you kind of like love them through all their flaws. Like it's they're still gonna be your dad, your mom,
mm,
like regardless. It's not
mm,
like a friend,
mm.
it's not like a partner. It's like they're kind of just your family essentially, like what you're
Yeah.
given with.
Yeah. I guess that's one of those things where I've been trying to accept my dad for who he is for basically my entire life. And it's just been a really long struggle in terms of like, we're just naturally very different. And he's very logical brained. I'm very emotional. And, he's very introverted. I'm very extroverted. And so, he enjoys a lot of quiet time and doesn't really go out. And, he still socializes every now and then, but it's not like me where I feel like I always want to be out and I kind of thrive off the energy of other people. Um, And so it's something where it's like so hard to kind of connect because, we don't really have a lot of mutual hobbies. And, I played badminton with him before, and, that was kind of nice to connect with him and have him kind of try to teach me badminton because, he wasn't really there when I was a kid. But I guess it's something where sometimes I wonder like how we ended up so differently, you know, and I guess it's kind of nature and nurture thing. But yes, it's hard to kind of reconcile because like I'm trying to make peace with the fact that, um, you know, he's trying to connect with me and I'm trying to connect with him, but it's like the bridge is just so long and so wide, and it's like it's like almost like we don't have a way of hearing each other, a way of seeing each other. And my friend kind of was helping me through that and was like, it's like there's such a huge generational gap, and the way that you think is just so different. But I obviously still want to be able to connect with him and still want him to love me and still be seen by him and still have his validation and his approval and all these things. But it's just like, to what extent? Because like everything that I've ever done in my life, I feel like I've pursued things differently, and I've just never wanted to do that normal 9 to 5. And sometimes it's just I want him to embrace me for who I am, and the fact that I do want to be an entrepreneur and I want to run my own thing and grow from there. But it's like I feel like he's just so stuck in his ways in terms of like, oh, this is the way to live life and this is the way to do things, that like he can't really step out of that. And maybe I'm the same way as well. But I don't know, it's just so hard to reconcile. And I know he's trying. I know like obviously I'm trying as well, but I just feel like we're just butting heads all the time. And it's like, we're on like some bridge and we can hear each other, but we can't see each other. And like, it's almost like there's a lot of fog there. And, like we both want to connect and we both want to see the perspective of the other person, but we just can't. And, some things we kind of can, but like the majority of things, it's just so hard to, be on the same page. So yeah, I don't know.
Oh,
What do
thanks
you
for
reckon?
being vulnerable. That was like
So,
very, the way you described the bridge thing was actually kind of poetic.
mm,
Um, but I hear you. Like your feelings are completely valid. Like
mm,
everything that you've just described, I feel like if it's any
mm,
solace, like you're definitely not the only one who
mm,
experiences those things.
mm,
Like, like on a personal experience, like I feel like me and my mom, like we're quite different as well. Like,
mm,
and not in a similar vein, but it's also like the things that I like to do and the things that she likes to do are different. So she always like questions me, like why do you like going out
yeah,
so much? Why do you like
yeah.
climbing all these things? Why do you like doing
The
all these like
tight
extreme
skins, Zoe.
sports?
Yeah,
Dude,
yeah.
literally, and I'm like, dude, I'm like
Bro, why are you at
I just have
Yochi
my
at 8
side
p.m. at night,
quests.
bro? Yeah.
I know, shocker. Why am I going
Yes,
out to
skin,
get ice
bro.
cream at 9 o'clock?
Yeah, way too ambitious,
Like,
bro.
why do I have like stocked
Wild
plans
hearted.
like day after day?
Yeah.
It's kind of similar. Like, so I like to do
Mm,
these things, and this is how I like
mm,
decompress and wind down. Whereas somebody
mm,
else might be better like by
yeah.
themselves, like curled up with a book or whatever. But I genuinely like
Mm,
enjoy
mm,
like being outside. I think like this is just like my season in life. I love my little side quests.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
but it's hard. It's I feel like as human beings, like people just like to project what they
Mm,
want out of the
mm,
other person, or like what
mm.
they want for
What do they want
themselves
for
onto the people that
themselves?
are close.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
especially
yes.
parents. Like
Okay.
this is a bit of a
Right. No, I've
tangent
never thought about
statement.
that. No, no, keep going, keep going.
Yeah.
We're digging right
No,
now.
but
Yeah.
but the projection thing is big. It's like everyone just
Mm,
projects their expectations onto other people. It's like it's similar. It's not even in
mm,
family dynamics. Like even like friendships, like partners. It's like why can't you
right.
be like this for me? Like why? Like
Mm,
don't you want to do this? Like you know what I mean? Like it happens
yeah.
like in all three core
Mm,
dynamics. Like um,
mm,
but
mm-hmm,
what I wanted to say was that like you kind of I don't know. It's like accepting. I think what you phrased was really good. It's just like having to find a middle ground of like accepting people for who they are
mm,
and like who they are as a person. And it's like
mm,
I think that's kind of love, right? Like given like
Mm,
all these other things that
mm,
you that frustrates you and everything, but you still
mm,
choose to like love them through
mm.
it kind of thing.
Right, right. Yeah, I don't know, bro. I guess it's tough because, like, I think I want him to be different in certain ways, and he wants me to be different in certain ways, right? I'm sure he wanted me to, you know, finish university and go get a job in consulting or whatever, and then pursue that path, or be an accountant at a big four. But it's like, that wasn't for me, and that's not what I wanted, and it just didn't pan out like that because of some external circumstances that I was unable to control. But um, on the other hand, it's like I wish he was more emotional, and I wish he was more gentle, and I wish he was more able to kind of have deeper philosophical conversations with me. And so it goes both ways. And I guess it's tough, and it's definitely one of those things where it's just intergenerational, a huge difference in terms of intergenerational values. Um, but yeah, I don't know, man. Like I'm still trying to reconcile. I want to reconcile. I know he wants to reconcile. Like he's trying his best. I think I'm trying my best, but it's something where it's like, I don't know, but I don't know, it's still in the works, I guess. Yeah.
That's something that's all that's matter all that's all that matters, right? Like
Mm.
you can't force anything. You can
Mm.
only do your best. If he's
Right.
doing his best, you're doing your best. You guys have each
Mm.
other's best intentions
Right.
at heart, and you guys are both acknowledging, even though it's hard as heck, like you
Mm.
guys are making an active effort. I feel like that's a
Yeah.
pretty good place to be. It's not the most ideal. It's kind of like with anything where it's like anything could be better, right? Like I could
Mm.
do better in my career. I could be making more money
Mm.
right now. I could be spending my time better. I could be saving more. I
Mm.
could be I could
Right.
be doing X thing better, but I
Mm.
think it's like finding that balance of like what I don't know,
Mm.
like I guess this is a broader question of like I guess like what you're searching for
Mm.
in life and like what defines happiness and that kind of thing. But
Mm.
I do think
Yeah.
if you're endlessly chasing like a standard that's realistically never going to be reached, it's quite
Mm.
exhausting. So I guess like
Mm.
knowing between like given like you and your dad and the people that you are and being like true to both each of you, that correct?
Mm.
Like being true to like how each of you guys are, like
Mm.
is this a standard you're happy with? It's kind of like
Mm.
what's a good analogy? It's like if you
Mm.
try to make the first that came to mind is like if you try to make like a cake with um all-purpose flour, which is like the flour you're meant to make it with. But if you try to like
Mm.
some whack other
Mm.
type of ingredient that's not meant to be in the cake,
Mm.
like it won't be the same. Like for example,
Mm.
almond flour, like it won't taste like the all-purpose flour cake, but it still tastes good if you tweak the
Okay.
recipe and make a good
Okay.
almond flour cake. That was a really
Okay.
whack analogy. I'm so sorry, but does that make
No, it's all
sense?
right, bro. I didn't fully get it, bro, but it's all right. Don't worry about it. It's all
It's
good.
okay.
It's all good. It's
That's
okay.
fine. That was just
Yeah.
the first thing that came to my head.
Okay.
But
Okay. Okay.
on a
Yeah.
tangent note, though, I remember what I was gonna say for my tangent.
Okay. Go.
This makes me
Yeah.
really scared. If I ever become a parent, I'm really
Mm.
scared that
Mm.
if my kid is very different from me, I'm gonna project
Mm. Yes.
my what
Yes.
I
I
want
have the
out of
same.
them onto them.
I have the same
Because
fear, bro.
like I feel
Mm.
like if my kid's not like me at all, I'm gonna be like,
Mm.
why don't you like this? I'm like, so
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
like,
I
yeah,
know. I
that's
know.
hard.
Like
That is hard.
I have that fear as well, man. Because I'm like, dude. Honestly, in theory, like I do want to have kids if I meet the right partner, but I've also just thought about the fact that me and my sister have just gone through so much in terms of trauma. And it's like me and my dad are so different. And there's just such a gap in terms of our age and values. And it's like, if I don't get my shit together financially in time to kind of have a kid within the time frame that I want to, it's like, is it even worth having a kid? I'm just scared that like my kid is maybe he's like really introverted and then like not into sports or not into XYZ things, and it's just like there's that fear that the same way that my dad hasn't been able to connect with me and I haven't been able to connect with him is going to roll over to the next generation. And it's like, what if like my kid isn't into footy and then isn't into, I don't know, isn't into martial arts and then like isn't into photography. I don't know. Like obviously these are my hobbies and my things, and I want to be able to teach my son and daughter about these different things that I'm passionate about. But yeah, there's just that fear in the back of my mind, like what if it's the same? What if I bring life onto this earth and then that kid goes through the same experience that I've had with my parents, just feeling completely misunderstood and just having, such a long struggle over a long period of time in terms of just trying so hard to accept them for who they are, but just wanting more out of them. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know. I'm just kind of scared for that as well. Yeah.
No, that's like real talk. It's like I think it'd be really fulfilling to like raise a human
Mm,
being given
mm,
like the life experience that you've had. Like that could be a
mm,
potentially like, really rewarding experience. But
mm,
obviously, like you have expectations of like how they kind of like would turn out, and they're like, oh,
mm,
like was I not a
mm,
good enough parent if they turned out like otherwise? But it's really not that. It's just maybe they have different interests and
mm,
life goals than what you had for them, and that's
mm,
I guess the hard part about being a parent. But
mm,
that definitely like scares me because I mean, like I don't want to box somebody into a mold that they don't want to be in. So it's like, yeah, but it's like
mm,
way harder when they're obviously your blood.
mm. Yeah.
Even with family, it's like similar to the dynamics with you and your dad, right? It's just like
Mm.
passed down to the next generation.
Yeah. Like I feel like if I had a kid, um, in theory, I would, want to love my kids unconditionally. But I don't know, it's just one of those things where if he was just so different from me, the same way that my dad's different from me, it's like, man, I think it would just be so hard to, I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's a bridge that we'll cross when we get there, but it's something that is like a fear in the back of my mind that I'm scared that I'm not going to be able to get my shit together financially. And, my dad was 42 when I was born. And so there's a huge generational gap. And, if I have kids, I want to have kids at the latest, honestly, by 35. And, I'm turning 26 this month.
What kind of biological clock are you on?
No, it's not it, but it's not about
That's
like,
such a girl like that. That's actually so interesting because that's a girl
Mm,
problem, not
mm.
usually a guy problem.
Yeah, but I don't look at it from the perspective of like I have a biological clock because I don't. It's more of an issue of like the older that I get, the more I feel that I'm going to be out of touch with the problems that my children are going to have. And so I don't want to have kids too late. Like I definitely don't want to have kids into my 40s because I'm scared that, I'm just not going to understand them. And then it's just going to be the same experience that I've had with my parents and my dad, and I'm just putting it onto my kid. Do you know what I mean? So,
That's such
yeah.
an interesting take.
Mm,
Hot takes. That's like your hot take is you want to be a dad by 35 because you feel like you'd be able to be, which makes sense. Like you'd be closer in age and
mm.
probably be more empathetic or like you're just able to relate to them slightly better. My
Yeah,
hot take
yeah.
is like if I didn't have a biological clock, I would like
Mm,
I think I would prefer to have kids a bit later if I wanted to have kids. Haven't really decided yet, but
right.
just
Okay.
because I feel like
Mm,
I'd be more financially set up later in life.
right. Okay. I
And I
mean,
would have
mhm,
lived the life that I wanted to live by myself and with my
mm,
partner so that I
right.
can fully like commit to my kids
Mm,
like after that.
right. Okay.
But
I mean, I
it's
can
like it's a
understand.
no, it's an
Mhm,
interesting take as well. Like I just
mm,
like yeah,
mm.
it's a good
Yeah,
perspective.
no, it's honestly, that's just the fear that I've had like the whole time. Like, and I've thought about it, and it's like, in ideal circumstances, I meet someone and, we start a life together at an optimal age and have kids at, within our early 30s. But it's like, I'm sure that there are a lot of other kids out there as well that feel really misunderstood. And that's because of a generational gap. And I just want to be able to kind of mitigate that as much as I possibly can and I think age is definitely one thing. I think there's definitely a cultural factor as well, because my dad didn't grow up in Australia, and I grew up here, and so his hobbies were like badminton, and I just that was just not something I was interested in, and obviously our parents have had to sacrifice so much in order for us to have the opportunity for education and all the things, the privileges that we enjoy today. But it's like because of that, because my dad doesn't really have hobbies other than badminton, and he's just spent a huge portion of his life just working for the future of me and my sister. It's like we don't really have anything to connect about, and he's in the past was like, oh, like Jeremy, you got to learn like Excel skills so you can you know put them into practice in the future, blah blah blah.
He's
And
an
I'm just like,
accountant for
yeah, obviously
context.
he's an accountant, and yeah, he's good at pivot tables, and that's his thing. But it's like my brain is completely different. Like I don't think like that. My brain is actually very extremely not mathematical, and so it's like I don't actually have an interest. I did accounting 101 at uni, and it's like, bro, looking at the
V
freaking
lookup.
balance. Yeah, bro, I'm looking through these balance sheets. I'm reading this accounting theory, and this is literally first year accounting. And I'm like, I have no idea what the hell is going on. I don't understand this. I don't enjoy this.
How do I get the
Like,
numbers to match up?
yeah, it's like, obviously, if I want to run a business in the future, it's like, I need some level of accounting skills, but it's like my brain is creative and emotional, and, I have linguistic intelligence, and, I have my intelligence is in other realms, not in numbers. And so, I don't know, I guess it's just always been difficult for my dad to accept that, because he maybe just wants me to be like him, but I've just never been able to be. Um, yeah, so that's kind of part of the struggle as well.
I guess my like there's just like I urge you to kind of understand, like for you to understand it from like his perspective, I guess. Like
Mm,
from his generation, jobs like which is the
mm,
whole difference. You can kind of see that difference in like the career landscape between Gen Zs and
mm,
our parents' generation. I think that's Gen X or
mm,
boomers, can't remember, but
mhm,
like jobs like these, like accounting, like engineering, doctor, lawyer, like your
mm,
standard like
mm,
Asian list of occupations, like these
yeah,
all offered and gave them stability to essentially
mm,
provide you with the life you had today. So
mm,
um they're making decisions based off their past data points from their life. They're like, oh,
mm,
going down
mm,
this path granted me success to give you this
yeah,
life. I want
yeah,
success for you. So this is the
mm,
advice I'm going to give you.
mm,
And they're like jobs like, cause back then, like social media
mm,
wasn't a thing. Like all these new
mm,
jobs that are now super well
yeah,
paid, like entrepreneurship is way more accessible now than it was back then. Back then, like
right,
going off to do your
mm,
own thing was very risky.
mm,
Like you had, if
mm,
you had commitments, like they
mm,
probably had to feed their parents too, and
mm,
they had to provide for
right,
their kids too. And it's like, wow, like
mm,
can't make, I can't take that risk.
mm,
I actually had a conversation with my dad recently about this, where it's like
mm,
he turned down like a business opportunity to start his own business because he felt like he needed
mm,
stability for the family. Like he felt
right,
like he had the like, I guess for context, like my dad is in like the elevator business here in Malaysia, and it's like he
yeah,
was like, oh, he built like a client base, like he knew who to talk to, but you
mm,
needed like capital that could potentially be like wiped out, and all these other factors where like my
mm,
eldest sister is about to go to university overseas. He had to pay for
mm,
her tuition fee, and like um
yeah,
there was a mortgage, and like he was obviously looking after his parents, and it was like there's like too much commitment. Like I can't really take that
mm,
risk right now. But I feel like
mm,
what our generation has the freedom to do is like
mm,
we have way more freedom, like
mm,
just to do
yeah,
things in general. Like
yeah,
if we don't like a job, we can leave. We if we
mm,
want to move countries, we can move. Like there's so much more
right,
opportunity
yeah,
to make all these different life paths that weren't available to our parents
mm,
come to life essentially.
right,
And
right, mhm,
that kind of scares them because they're like, oh my God, like I don't know what this is. Like, are you sure? Like
mm,
also back then, life, like how do I phrase this? Like the life, like life your life trajectory is quite cookie cutter, right? And everyone talks
Mm,
about this, where like everyone like get
yeah.
graduate, get a good job, find a partner, get
Mm,
married, have kids, and
yeah.
then live in your white picket fence
Yeah.
house
Yeah.
happily
Yeah.
ever after or whatever
Mm,
until you
mm,
retire. But now it's
yeah.
like a lot of people are growing out of that mold, and like I think
Mm,
it just scares parents because they're like, oh my god, like that is stability. Like, what are you doing?
mm.
So yeah, I don't know. That's just like a hot, like your dad's perspective, maybe that I could
Yeah.
offer.
No, I think you make a lot of valid points. I think it's just obviously the privileges that I enjoy, that me and my sister enjoy, are because of the sacrifices that my parents have made, and we're eternally grateful for the sacrifices that they have made. Um, but at the same time, it's like, I think that our versions of success are very different, and you know, I think stability was what was prioritized first back in those days because our parents came from poverty, and they didn't grow up in good socioeconomic circumstances. But due to the labor of my parents, me and my sister did grow up in good circumstances. They both immigrated to Australia so that we could live a better life. But it's like there's that gap there because like I want to pursue things that fulfill me, and obviously stability is important to some degree, but I I don't know. Like I care about other things, and doing things that just that fulfill me in certain ways that I feel like he doesn't really understand. And that's the difficult part because our life perspectives are just completely different, and we both want to understand each other. We want to love each other, and we want to have good communication, and you know just have that deep connection. But it's just so difficult because I don't know. I don't know. I can't. It's like we're both on that bridge, and yeah, we can't. We can hear each other, but we can't see each other, and there's fog there, and I'm trying to visualize his perspective, and he's trying to visualize my perspective, and he's probably like, you've had it so easy. Like think about the opportunities that you've had in terms of education and you know access to all of these things in terms of leisure and trivial things, but it's like I don't know, like yeah, I don't know. What do you reckon?
Yeah, no, I hear it. I spoke to my friends recently about this, and my friend made a really good point.
Mm.
He was like, it's like the Maslow hierarchy of needs, if you ever heard
Mm.
that, where
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
I know.
each
Yeah, yeah.
generation, quality of life has improved
Mm. Mm.
subjectively. We have social media and all this crap that's coming out of tech these
Yeah,
days and crazy people.
yeah,
But
yeah.
like each generation, like more and more needs are like fulfilled on a
Mm.
basis level. And I feel like if
Mm.
you see it from like a population perspective, it's like
Mhm.
because quality life, like there's a way to phrase this in like a
Mm.
scientific theory, but it's like because back when in like war days and
Mm.
like mortality rates were low, so that's why a lot of people had a lot of kids. But you can see now
Okay.
like the birth rates are also decreasing. It's also arguably
Mm.
because oh, like we
Mm.
don't need to reproduce that much anymore because all of these people are very likely gonna live to like a decent age, and
Mhm.
we don't really need to have like 12 kids to sustain this population or to ensure like our species continues on
Mm.
and so on and so forth. But like, but this the needs or things are right. Back in the day, it was like
Mm.
it was just like oh, like the goal, like their aspiration, and they were very much fulfilled if they could provide a
Mm.
stable life for their family and put food on the table.
Mm.
But now
Okay.
it's like that's a good baseline for a lot of people. Obviously,
Right.
there's exceptions to that rule. There's still a lot of people who are struggling to do that. But
Yep. Yep.
I guess in Australia or like an environment that we grew up in, like
Mm.
most people have a safe place to live, have
Mm.
access to
Mm. Food
education,
and
all that
water.
kind of
Yep.
stuff. So the next level
Mm.
up is like, oh, like self
Mm.
actualization maybe, or like
Yeah.
I could be
Exactly.
totally missing the bar.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the
Yeah. Well,
next level of
self-actualization is at the
fulfillment,
top. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
but like the next level of fulfillment, because like that base level is essentially
Mm.
mostly fulfilled for most people.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah.
No, I mean you make a good point, and yeah, I don't know. I feel like I empathize with him because obviously I've never immigrated to a new country. Had to learn English as my second language, And then, he obviously didn't have a safety net underneath him when he moved here to Australia. And me and my sister have always had a safety net because of the sacrifices that my parents have made. And so, yeah, I guess it's just hard for, and obviously I've said it again and again that we're grateful for it, but it's like, you know, he just can't see it from my perspective, and he wants stability for me and just wants me to get a full-time job and work in corporate or whatever that might be. But it's like I actually I don't want that, and I feel like because that was forced upon me from a young age, it's like I just wanted to rebel and was like, whatever you want from me, like I don't want anything to do with that. And so that's kind of why manifested I've kind of been the way that I am. But um yeah, I do agree that he, I guess my dad's always just kind of been at the bottom of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and you know he's never really been able to ascend above the bottom. And he has
That's
his basic.
harsh. He's doing fine.
Yeah, no, I'm saying like I don't mean, no, I don't mean that in like a derogatory way. It's just more that I feel like my dad has always had financial stresses, and he's always felt that he's never had enough money. And I understand that because he's never he doesn't have a safety net underneath him. His parents aren't here, he doesn't have people supporting him, and so it's like he has to rely solely on himself, whereas I still have the support of my mum and dad financially. And so it's like, yeah, it's really difficult for, like, I can empathize and try to put myself in his shoes, but like obviously I don't know what it was like to have to immigrate here, go to university, get a degree in your second language, and then try to assimilate into a society in your second language, and just not really be able to assimilate that well. And now you have kids, and it's like you have these values that you've taken from your home country, and you're kind of projecting them onto your kids, but it's like they don't see life the same way because they've grown up in a different environment. So yeah, there's just always perpetually that kind of conflict there, which is really hard to kind of resolve. So yeah, how about you?
Yeah, it's hard. No, I like your experience is totally valid too, and yeah, it's hard. Our parents work really hard to give us the life that we have. I feel like kind of that way you
Sure.
take it for granted. Like I do hear it sometimes too. Like I definitely
Mm,
would not have had the life I have today if
mm.
it wasn't for my family. And
The sacrifices,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
that's fair.
it's hard. Yeah, there's no, I
Yeah.
don't think there's like a cookie cutter solution to, it's not really a problem, but just like these
Mm.
experiences we go through.
Mm.
I think the consoling thing I always find myself thinking is like, oh, like you're not alone. Like everyone else, not everyone else,
Right.
but a lot of other people have similar
Mm.
experiences, and it's
Mm.
just part
Okay.
of life, I guess. I think maturing is also realizing like, oh, a lot of things are not as
Mm.
like shiny and
Right.
idealistic as they once seemed.
Okay. Well, how do we kind of resolve that, right? Like, how am I able to put myself in his shoes so I can understand his experience as being a migrant and immigrating here, and then not having a safety net under him, and, you know, trying to climb up the corporate ladder so that he can buy property and then provide for his family, and then, vice versa for him to try and understand me. Like, I don't know, how do we reconcile those kind of intergenerational issues? Do you reckon?
There's no straight answer, I don't think. It's kind of like an ongoing effort.
Mm.
Like with any relationship in your life, like it's continuous work that's put into it. It's like continuous effort to understand each other, to want
Mm.
to like grow.
Mm.
But I guess what's different from a friend or from a partner is like, oh, you can't really say like, oh, I don't want you to be my dad anymore. Well, you can literally say
Mm.
that, but like he will always
Yeah.
biologically be your dad and you'll always be
Yeah.
linked.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can't really change who your dad is. That's just like
Mm.
one of the givens.
Yeah.
But I think the solution, which I feel like you guys are on your way to do, is to do your best, basically. Be understanding,
Mm.
respect that you guys are different people.
Mm.
Like, because I don't believe in changing. trying to change somebody because
Mm,
then the other person is not going to be authentic or true to themselves, which is
mm,
a disservice to them, essentially.
mm, right.
So I think you guys are actually walking on that path where you guys are
Mm,
actually actively making an effort. A lot of people don't even reach that point, I feel.
mm, right.
And at least I feel like you guys are having conversations about it. It's
Mm,
frustrating, but it's ongoing
mm,
work. But as long
yeah.
as you guys continue
Mm,
to put in effort, I
yeah.
think you guys are doing fine.
Mm. I mean, I guess you're right. It's just obviously really, really slow. And, it's just,
You can't rush. Everything's on their own timeline.
yeah. Okay. Alrighty. Well, I didn't expect this episode was to get this deep, but
Neither, dude.
it's all right. We're just
Oh
rolling with
well.
it. We'll just let it flow.
I know.
Um,
It's vibes. I enjoyed it.
yeah. Do you got to go, bro? Do we need to wrap up or?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, let's wrap up. Okay, cool. Alrighty. Well, I didn't think that was gonna get that deep, but appreciate you guys
Here we
listening. If you're still
are.
here to episode 5 of Late Night Hotpot, I'm your host Jeremy. Got my co-host.
Zoe.
Why there's such
Oh
a
my god.
pause, bro? You're meant to be
I
like
didn't know you were
Zoe.
gonna direct
No,
me.
it's
I
all
was
good,
like,
bro. All good, all
oh,
good.
all right.
All good. Got my co-host Zoe here. But yeah, really appreciate you guys listening if you're still here. Yeah, if you like the content, give us a subscribe, share, like. But yeah, really appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.